Session 29, Finishing Well, the Steward's Long Game. Welcome to Session 29. I am Rich Abbott, the Steward's Mind, Week 6, Session 4 of 5. One session after this one. 29 sessions of work behind you. Today, I want to talk about something that is rarely addressed in financial teaching, and even more rarely addressed in biblical financial teaching. The long game. What it means to finish well as a steward, not just to start with renewed intentions, not just to have a good season, not just to experience a period of financial growth, but to build something that is still standing and still growing decades from now. Because here is what I know from both Scripture and from watching people's financial lives over many years. Most people do not finish well financially, not because they started badly, not because they lacked information or intention, but because the long game requires something that short-term motivation cannot supply, and most financial motivation is short-term. The person who finishes well financially is not the person who had the most dramatic early success. They are the person who built sustainable systems, maintained faithful practices through the seasons of difficulty, and never confused a setback with a conclusion. Part 1. The Seasons of the Steward. Ecclesiastes 3:1. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. The financial life of a faithful steward is not a straight line of continuous growth. It has seasons. Seasons of building and seasons of waiting. Seasons of increase and seasons of loss. Seasons where the diligent hand produces visible fruit, and seasons where the seed seems to be in the ground with no sign of what is coming. Most people abandon the practices of a stewardship in the hard seasons. When the finances are difficult, when the setback comes, when the plan does not produce the expected results, when the gap between where you are and where you believe you would be becomes painful, the temptation is to conclude that the system does not work, that the renewed mind was not enough, that the faithful hand was not rewarded, and to drift back to the difficult patterns of the unrenewed lev. This is where most financial transformation stories end, not with dramatic failure, with a quiet drift back to the familiar. The steward who finishes well knows that the seasons are not evidence against the system. They are part of the system. The ant stores in summer because winter comes, not because the ant failed, because winter is part of the agricultural reality within which the ant operates. The steward who finishes well does not revise their theology based on the difficulty of the season. They hold the long view, the Proverbs 13:22 two-generation view, and continue the faithful practices even when the fruit is not yet visible. Part 2. The practices that sustain the long game. What sustains faithful stewardship across the long game, across the decades, across the seasons, across the setbacks and the plateaus? 3 things. The same 3 things that have run through the steward's mind from the beginning. Identity. When the season is hard and the finances are difficult, the person who has built their stewardship on a clear sense of who they are does not drift. The identity holds. I am a steward. The resources are not mine. My role is faithful management, not guaranteed outcomes. The identity is not contingent on the season. Community. No one finishes the long game alone. The steward who is surrounded by people who speak trajectory language, who hold the long view together, who pray together about financial decisions and celebrate progress and grief, losses without catastrophizing, that person has a resource that no financial asset can replicate. The daily practice, not the dramatic, not the occasional intensive effort, the daily practice, morning anchoring, interception, evidence collection, declaration, maintained quietly, consistently, through the ordinary days that make up the majority of a financial life. The compounding of faithful daily practice over years and decades is the mechanism of the long game. There is no substitute for it. Part 3, the enemy of finishing well. I want to name the primary enemy of finishing well because it is not what most people expect. It is not failure. Failure is recoverable. The steward who fails, who loses money, makes bad decisions, experiences financial setbacks, can recalibrate and rebuild. Failure is not the end of the long game. The enemy of finishing well is comparison. The person who measures their financial progress against the visible success of others, who looks at what the person next to them appears to have accumulated and concludes that they are behind, that the system is not working, that something is wrong with their faithfulness, that person is in danger of abandoning a sound strategy for the appearance of a faster one. Comparison is the enemy because it moves your eyes from your own lane to someone else's. And when your eyes are in someone else's lane, you cannot run your own race well. 2 Corinthians 10:12. When they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are not wise. The steward who finishes well runs their own race. They calibrate their own progress without needing it to look like anyone else's. They hold their own Proverbs 13 verse 22 view, their own two-generation trajectory, and they do not need external validation to keep building. Part 4. What finishing well actually looks like. Let me paint a picture of what finishing well looks like for the faithful steward, not in terms of a specific financial number, because the amount is not the measure of faithfulness, but in terms of the life. The steward who finishes well is still building at 70, not frantically, not out of anxiety, but with the quiet, compounding momentum of decades of faithful practice. They have a lev that is genuinely renewed, not perfectly, because renewal is ongoing, but different enough from where it started that the difference is visible in every dimension of their financial life. They have transmitted a financial culture to the people around them that is richer in every dimension, financial, cultural, and spiritual, than the one they received. They give generously, not because they finally have enough to give from, but because the open hand has been their posture for decades, and it has produced exactly what Proverbs said it would, a life that is fuller, not emptier, for the giving. They are at peace with money, not indifferent, engaged, but not anxious, not controlled, not defined, at peace with a tool they have learned to manage faithfully. And they have the evidence, not a perfect financial record, but a log of declarations spoken, of pathways built, of old beliefs replaced, of seasons navigated, of the arc of a life that moved consistently in the direction of the Tob person. Solomon described the good person, the well-functioning person, the one who produces what they were designed to produce. Closing declaration. Say this: I am playing the long game. I do not measure my progress by the season I am in. I measure it by the direction I am building. I run my own race. I hold my own two-generation view. The daily practice, maintained through every season, is how the long game is won. I am in this for the finish, and I am finishing well. This is Rich Abbott. One session left. Session 30 brings the steward mind to its close.